guys for being here. I really appreciate taking time out on a Friday to talk about student-driven partnerships and how we can really help kids take ideas and turn them into actions. I will start, for those of you who are not familiar with who I am, I'm Blake Cohn. I'm the Executive Director of the National Network of Schools in Partnership, and it is our intent as an organization to support educators and students in schools who are trying to shift their community service and service learning programs to ones of community engagement. And so today we're going to take a moment to talk about specifically how we can support students in who have an idea of some way to engage with their community or do some sort of service, and how can we best support them to take those ideas and put them into action. And I will give us a minute to introduce ourselves. I did send out a contact list earlier so that you all should feel free to connect with one another after this conversation. And if we should feel the need for a follow-up, that is completely an opportunity and a possibility to do. I'm happy to coordinate all of us. So I will start with Linda, and I will just tell, I don't know if you see the same screen I do, so I'll just ask you to introduce yourselves, tell a little bit about what you do, your school, and then we'll get moving with Allison's going to share a little bit about the program at Rye Country Day.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Hurley. I am one of the community service coordinators at Nolan Regional School. I've been working in service department for about 17 years. And, you know, we have a requirement of our students that they complete 80 hours of service before they graduate.
Great. You have a great new head of school, Linda. Kathy.
I can't
wait. Supporter of us. So I'm really excited for you all. Kathy is from Episcopal Academy in Philadelphia, and so I'm telling everybody else. And so she has just been named the new head of Noble. So you should be very excited. She's
first woman in 150 years.
Yeah, well, that too. It's a big year for women. It's good. Okay, Guyby, can you introduce yourself?
Hi. Good morning, everyone. At least it's morning out here in San Francisco, and thanks again for getting us all together, Blake. My name is Guyby Slangen, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement here at the San Francisco Friends School. We are a kindergarten through 8th grade school, one of the few on the West Coast out here, and I've been here at the school for 8 years, and we don't have a requirement per se in terms of hours or things like that. It's pretty much woven into the curriculum throughout classes and you know, partnerships and various projects that way. So happy to share more details if there's interest, but I'm also eager to learn from and with you all. So thank you.
Excellent. And Emily.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Emily. I'm the new Director of Community Service at Greenwich Academy. We're a K-12 girls' school, but we coordinate with a boys' school at the high school level. So we coordinate and do classes with Brunswick School, which is also in Greenwich. And we don't have a community service requirement. We are just starting to reconsider community engagement and what that means for us. So in the past, the position that I'm in, and the position I'm in right now is I'm a teacher plus, but we're starting to talk about integrating it more into our classes and things like that. So that's kind of been the goal for this year. And I went to the Rye Country Day presentation that Allison talked about, and it was awesome. So it's cool.
It is. It is very exciting what they're doing. And I think it's exciting, Emily, when you guys are talking about shifting, well, you and I talked about it, but shifting this notion of community service to engagement and you know, having a more involved and evolved program. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's about time. So good.
All right, Dave, hello, are you there?
Where is that grab the torch guy? Come on, Dave.
Dave, I see you.
Oh, you see him? How do
I don't see him. I mean, he's logged in, but oh, maybe that's him that told me he's listening on the train. So I got a text. Is that you, Dave, that said you were listening on the train? And so he's not there. So Allison, I'm sorry, you guys. This is what technology does to me. Allison, you are up. If you could introduce yourself and then feel free to get started telling us about your fellowship program, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. So I'm Allison Dornberg. I'm the Director of Public Purpose at Rye Country Day School in Rye, New York. I'm in my 4th year here, and our public purpose program has grown out of a more traditional community service program as we shift more toward looking at community engagement as being about reciprocal partnerships and building relationships over time. So that's the philosophy that that underscores our programming. We're a K through 12, pre-K through 12 school, and I work across all divisions here, but the program that I'm going to speak about today is a relatively new program in our upper school that we just launched last year. And I'll speak a little bit about it and then hopefully be able to answer questions that any of you might have. So we last year received a matching grant from the Edward E. Ford Foundation, which gave us the support needed to start this new program called the Community Engagement Fellowship Program. And the idea for the program actually came from a fellowship that I had done when I was a graduate student and had worked in partnership with a community organization, and it was a wonderful experience. And I thought this is a program that could easily be adapted for younger students, and wanted to give it a try here, which we did. And the way that the program worked for us, we had 10 students who each student worked in partnership with a local organization throughout most of the year last year to develop and launch a project which took place over the summer, either a 4 or 8 week project where the student was working 20 hours a week at their partner organization on a project that they had figured out together. And that part of it was very important from my perspective, that the student didn't come in saying either, I want to volunteer for your organization, I'll do whatever you need, or I'm coming in with a very specific idea that I want to do my way, but that the process of developing the project really happened collaboratively. We did a series of seminars with the students in preparation for their projects where we talked about what community engagement means, how we interact within our communities, how to work effectively in a team, communication skills, leadership skills, things like that. So the students had some training going into their projects, and the organizations that they worked with were varied. We had students, 2 students working at a local community center here, both in the technology realm. One student helped launch a tech center at this community center, transforming a former closet space at the community center into a tech lab with 18 desktop computers, and the student trained kids and teens from the community center to help actually construct the desktop computers. Another student, once the tech center got set up, taught 4 computer coding classes to a total of 80 students from a school district which doesn't offer any computer classes for elementary school students. We had a student work at a local community garden. We had a student work at a resource center for immigrant families to create and teach a summer academic enrichment program for students coming into middle school. We had a student work with a nonprofit that works with students with physical disabilities to create a buddy program that pairs younger students with disabilities with older student mentors. We had a student work at a local nature center. Another student developed a performing arts program at a Boys and Girls Club that had no performing arts program, and she directed a musical that was performed at the end of the summer, and did all of the direction and musical direction and all of those things. And I could keep going, but hopefully that gives a sense of the kinds of things that our students did. A lot of them had a teaching element where they developed a program that they then taught to younger students, but not all of them did. The students and their community partners from the organizations worked very closely together throughout the development and implementation of the projects. And it was, I think, a really rewarding experience for the students as a whole, because they, hold on, sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, I had a student just come in. I apologize. I have lost my train of thought. So the students were working closely with their partner organizations throughout all phases of the project, and the benefit, for the students, I think, was really having the ability to take ownership of an idea. They came up with a project idea and really got to see it all the way through with adult support. All of the students had a faculty mentor here at school in addition to their community partner. But also, in addition to their leadership skills and ownership, for us as a school, it was a way for us to grow some of our partnerships with local organizations and create some new ones as well. Many of the students worked with organizations that we have a relationship with already, but other students worked with organizations that we hadn't worked with in the past. And so that was a nice way for us to, start the seeds of some new programs as well. So the students completed their projects, again, for 4 or 8 weeks, depending on the grant that they received from us during June, July, and August. Each student received a budget for their project, and they also were given a stipend as part of the grant. Their faculty mentors were also given a stipend. And then at the end of the summer in September, the students all shared their projects at a symposium that took place here at school. We invited all of our community partners and some partners from other organizations, maybe who didn't work with the student this summer, but might want to in the future. And it was a really nice way for students to share the work that they had done with our community. And it was a great first year. We're excited to bring it forward. And I'll stop talking now, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. That was awesome. You could talk forever. That would be great. Does anybody have any questions for Allison?
How did the students do that? I'm guessing they set some goals, but how did they do when things just didn't work out the way they?
Yeah.
How did they deal with adversity?
It's a great question, and something that, as all of you can imagine, we talked a lot about. One of the things I think that was helpful was we talked about it preemptively before their projects got started, about the importance of being flexible and not having having a plan, but not having such a tight plan that that you couldn't accommodate things not going your way. As all of you know, the nature of this work is that things don't always go according to plan. The students were really wonderful with that, though. They were flexible. They were able to adapt as needed to make things go well. And I think they quickly realized, sometimes through trial and error, where their plans needed some adjustment. The student who I mentioned earlier, who taught the computer coding classes at at the community center dealt with the challenges that every teacher, new or veteran faces in terms of planning a class and realizing, oh, wait, I planned this activity that I thought was going to take 20 minutes and it only took 5 minutes. And this activity that I thought was going to take 5 minutes took the whole class. And so figuring out how to, how to balance those different pieces, how to deal with shifting schedules, all of those realities. I mean, I think it's great life practice for them, for sure.
And so were the faculty members were there throughout the summer to support them? Were you were also there? So was there meeting time at school where they would convene, throughout the summer to sort of have group talk about what they were working on?
A little bit, although something that I would like to do more of going forward. So students met either in person or by Skype or phone with their faculty mentor once a week throughout the summer, throughout the duration of their project. The faculty mentors also visited students regularly throughout the summer at their project sites, as I did as well. So for most of the students, at least once a week, someone was visiting them on site, if not more often. Then we had 2 different times during the summer where we got together just informally over pizza here at school, and the students got to, talk about what they were doing on their projects. And because of the timing, different students doing their projects at different times, we never had more than half the group there at any one time, but it was still a nice opportunity for them to hear what other people were up to and hear the challenges that other people were facing, and like, oh yeah, that's really hard for me too, and oh, here's how I, how I dealt with that, and that sort of thing.
Any other questions?
Yeah, forgive me for having to step out prior. There was a thing that pulled me away, so apologies if you already discussed this, but what did the funding from EE Ford support?
So the funding supported several things. So each student was given a stipend for their project, which varied depending on whether, a smaller stipend for a 4-week project, a larger stipend for an 8-week project. So the idea was that this could be an alternative to a summer job, that they would get paid for doing this work and doing something helpful for the community. Each student also had a budget for their project. So that was part of the grant from EE Ford. At the end of the project, each student also had a $500 allocation to their partner organization. So based on the work that they had done together over the course of the summer and the months leading up to the summer, students made a determination about how they thought that money could be best used. So the student who worked at the community garden realized that in the summer it's really hot in the sun, and they did a lot of family work days and opportunities for community members to come to the garden. He used his money to buy an umbrella and bench area so that there could be a shaded spot for families to come during the summer. The student who worked at teaching the coding classes used the money to help upgrade the server of the tech center so that they could do a little bit more with their technology. The faculty mentors also got a small stipend for their work, and then we also used the money to do things like our seminars leading up to the program, to have refreshments, to be able to bring in outside professionals. We had someone from Columbia University's Office of Student Engagement come and do a presentation for students, and other people from the community that we're able to give an honorarium to come work with our students. And that was really wonderful to have that support. And the idea is that the grant from EE Ford will fund us for the next 3 years, and that we will generate our own funding to continue the program beyond that.
That was my next question. I was going to ask how you foresaw the future of the program, because I know that the funding is a finite, it's at most 5 years, right? So,
yes.
And so I have a question. How did the kids document, or, you know, did they make a portfolio? Was there a requirement of them to sort of create a resume, or, you know, document what they did over the summer, or was that just the presentation? I guess I'll stop answering the question and give you an open-ended question.
Yeah, no, great question. The students had a weekly blogging requirement, and so each student did a weekly blog post describing what they had done over that week. Sometimes the posts were open-ended. Occasionally, I gave them specific prompts connecting back to things we had talked about in the training sessions in the spring, or other topics, making some social justice connections. So they did do that over the course of the summer, and then the students each wrote a final reflection at the end of the project, and then presented at the symposium. So there are several.
Did you record the presentation?
No, it was sort of a science fair setup. Emily actually came to see it, which was awesome. So the students each had a table in kind of a lounge area, and people milled around and spoke to each of them individually about their projects, which worked really well, except for recording it in a way for posterity.
No, and I know that you're interested in sort of creating these service, like the notion of creating a service resume. So that's why I was asking if you're working on that, or, you know, helping kids figure out how they can. That'll be another Google Hangout topic, because I find myself very interested. How can kids document, you know, creatively this work that they're doing that's not it's not recognized on their report cards?
Right. Yeah. And I think for us, you know, some of the final reflections that students wrote obviously are one form of documentation, but they created other artifacts throughout the summer. So the student at the garden managed social media for the garden. So he created a website and, you know, managed their Facebook and Instagram accounts. The student teaching computer classes created a 50-page textbook that can be used for future programs. We had 2 students actually who worked together to develop and run a sports program at a summer camp in a school district that received huge funding cuts from the government. So they have a curriculum and, you know, activity guide for that program that again could be replicated in the future. So I think that those artifacts obviously have a benefit to the organizations in terms of making these programs sustainable over time. And that was one of the goals for the students, was that their program couldn't be a one-off that they did and then would never get replicated again, but that the organization, you know, would be able to keep it going. But I think it's a great question of how the students may use those artifacts in the future to demonstrate what they've done.
I see a real trend. You know, our kids reflect on their volunteering because it's important for them to make that connection in the learning kind of thing. But we have a real trend of using social media, making videos. It's just not writing anymore. It's more it's more what they like to do and how they like to report on what their work is, what they're doing.
And I think what I'm interested in is, how do you take these sort of multimedia, like, let's encourage the kids to reflect in the way that resonates most clearly with them, but how do you then translate that into a college application or a job application, or, you know, and I think there's more and more opportunities for kids to submit those things, but I think it's a really interesting trend, and one that that service lends. It lends to having that sort of reflection that's not just a straight up reflection written piece. So I'm gonna be I can already tell I'm gonna be talking about this for a while. So just you heard it here first. It's a new trend for NNSP to think about. So are there any more questions for Allison? I just love it. Allison, are any of the kids still involved with the organizations they were with over the summer? Have they continued?
Yes, several of them have. So the two students who were working on this sports program at a local public elementary school, so the camp as a whole at this school is in grave financial danger because of these funding cuts. And the two students were asked by the camp director to be part of a town-wide coalition to, to preserve the camp in the future. So they actually have made presentations on behalf of the camp to local officials and other community leaders, which has been really cool. I actually have met people from other organizations in that town who know of Rye Country Day because they have heard these two students present in the coalition meetings. So I have been really excited about that. We had another student who worked at a resource center for immigrant families, as I mentioned earlier, creating this academic summer program for students entering middle school. And he's now trying to get a club started here at school so that other students from our school may be able to continue volunteering there and doing homework help and things like that. The student who started the buddy program for students with disabilities, that's something that she's looking also to continue, throughout the year and going forward. And we will have the opportunity for students who are not graduating to apply to continue their fellowships for a second year. And I believe that some of the students will want to do that to grow their programs even further. So so that's kind of where things are at the moment, and it's exciting.
It is exciting. It's great.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Allison. I had a technical problem here, and as you were answering my question, I totally everything froze up, and I had the fear of missing out what you said, and I had the rainbow wheel going, and things
no worries.
Apologies. It was right at the time where I feel like you were going to drop some,
like, break it down,
and had the silver bullet and everything was going, and then I lost you. So
it's fine. So either if you want to watch it on YouTube, you can get all of the info there, but I can also just shoot you an email with a breakdown of where the grant funding went.
And lastly, you were touching on this in your last response, but this idea of sustainability, and is that one of the objectives of the program, or do they go into this entering, it's a finite time, it's a 4 to 8 week thing, and the organizations also know that it's potentially limited to this one time? I'm just thinking about, if this thing really gets off the ground and then this senior graduates and then the organization is like, wow, our social media really took off when Susie was there. And now we're kind of left hanging because no one else is there to fill that.
What's the Instagram password?
Right. Exactly.
like that. Or does that then, become a burden potentially on the organization because they now have to, keep their Facebook feed going, and now they don't have that person to generate that. Like all of those kind of things, but knowing that it is potentially a finite project because the person goes off and graduates and all that stuff. So.
It's a great question. So let me see if I can remember back to all of the parts of it to try to address. So the sustainability piece was absolutely a goal from the outset. When students applied for the fellowship, that was one of the questions on the application was, basically, what is your sustainability plan? How will this program outlast the 4 or 8 weeks that you spend on it? So it was something that we wanted them to be thinking about from the very beginning. In terms of what that looks like in reality, some students I think will continue their projects, but again, for a finite period of time, maybe 1 more year, maybe 2 more years at the most. My hope is that for some of the organizations that if a student works there for 1 or 2 years and then, oh no, we lost Guyby again when I was answering the question.
He's here.
Oh, now he's back. But that if a student works for 1 or 2 years with an organization, that perhaps a younger student might come in and continue the work going forward from here. I think though for some of the organizations, the projects over the summer gave them insight into the importance of finding ways to meet some of these needs, even in the absence of our students. So I'm thinking about the Boys and Girls Club, where one of our students created this performing arts program, and the summer program director there said, you know, we had never considered having a program like this, but our students have gravitated toward it so much, it's making us realize that even if, you know, this student doesn't come back, which we really hope she will, that we need to create a budget to do this, because it's a big plus for our students. So I think there's kind of a mix of what the sustainability piece looks like for the organizations.
Yeah, are you there? Because your picture hasn't moved in a while. He's making noise, but I don't hear him. Maybe he's struggling.
Sorry, friends, my camera just keeps on freezing, and I'm getting the audio, but
okay.
The camera doesn't seem to be
getting the audio. I mean, you don't really need to stare at our faces. Does anybody have any other questions? If not, I'm going to open it up to talk about what is happening at each of your schools and give you an opportunity to bring up some challenges that you're having, and maybe we can use this opportunity to brainstorm and share our best practices to see how we can improve all of our opportunities for our students. So,
well, I do have one question.
Go ahead, Emily.
Oh, sorry. So we didn't talk about this, Allison, actually today, but we actually have a similar grant. We have a grant that happens every year that our students are able to give to an organization, and we're thinking about changing it so that it's so that it's similar. And that's the reason I actually attended the event, because we're thinking about offering students, or looking into offering students, a grant to work with an organization, and we're trying to decide, it would probably only fund 1 or 2 students, but we're trying to decide whether to offer it in the summer or during the school year, in terms of their participation with the organization. And we're kind of, I feel like we're struggling a little bit with that decision, because I think there are positive, the positive to the summer obviously is a focus on the organization, and an opportunity to spend a significant amount of concentrated time in the organization. But of course, the benefit to the school year, to making that time during the school year, is that we're showing students how to integrate this into their life. And we're saying, even when you're at school, we find the time to make this happen. And perhaps even offering that they can leave early during the school day to go to their organization. Do any of you guys have thoughts about that, about summer versus the school year? When I actually went to the RCDS event, I felt pretty firmly about school year, but then I saw what your students did, and I thought, oh wow, they really couldn't have done that if they hadn't had that concentrated time. So
I think it's impressive that you had kids that could dedicate 2 to 4 weeks in the summer. I don't know who those kids are, but you know, a lot of my students would never do that, because they're doing 800 other things. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our students, don't be mistaken, a lot of our students are doing 8 million other things as well. And most of these students were doing something else with their summer. But for the students who did the 8-week projects, this really was their summer. And Emily, I think you're right that the nature of what can happen in 8 concentrated weeks, or even 4 concentrated weeks, is different than what can happen during the school year. But I do feel like there is something valuable about the consistency of doing something week in and week out, and having it, intersect with other facets of life. So there's a non-answer for you.
Yeah.
But,
it's just something I'm thinking about in terms of do we start it with a summer program? And I love that your kids are kind of authentically looking for opportunities to connect with their groups during the summer. During the school year, after the summer.
Divey, the question was whether Emily was wondering, the value of doing a program like this during the school year. She has a amount of money that she could do a similar stipend for fellowship program, but they're weighing school year versus summer, and so that's sort of where this conversation is going. I don't know if you missed the beginning of that. And
apologies. It's a good question, and again, apologies for my technical difficulties here.
I'm not trying to draw attention to your technical difficulties. I just would like to know where we are, so that because I feel like you're engaged and you would like to participate. So, anyway, I mean, from an outsider's perspective, because I'm not in a school currently. I think it's really crucial as a school, as an institution, to commit to these programs during the school year. And that is not of issue to Rye Country Day, because they have so many other things going on that demonstrate that commitment. But as you're building a program, to include it in your curricular program is really it's a branding of what you're doing, and it's crucial. And so I would think that as you are growing a program, to keep it within the school year and to give it an opportunity to be open to everybody, regardless of their summer activities and their extracurricular, I think that is that says a lot to the strength of the programming. That's just my opinion from back here, but that's where I would lean.
That's a good point. I mean, our school definitely doesn't do as much as Rye Country Day does.
No school does.
The school year, so part of. But so, like, that's a good point. If we're using it as something to really try to encourage more of the types of work that Allison's already doing at her school, then it might make sense to actually put it in the school year and have like 1 or 2 kids doing it. Then you had like 8, you said? Was it 8?
We had 10.
10, right.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. Like, I was like, I couldn't believe it.
How many kids applied altogether? Like,
we had 15 apply this year, and for something new.
That's great.
So yeah, which was great, and I have no idea what that will look like the second time around, but I can keep you posted.
Yeah, and well, I mean, having too many applicants, that's the best problem you could ever have. I mean, aside from not being able to help all of those children, it's good. It's strength programming.
Yes.
And do you do anything for middle school along these lines?
We have not done anything quite along these lines for middle school in terms of kind of the independent project during the summer. We do it. So for our middle school service learning program, students have an opportunity to propose a group project that they would like to lead with support from a faculty facilitator. We have service learning blocks about once every 3 to 4 weeks for 45 minutes. So they're not super frequent, making it a little bit hard to get momentum going and sustaining on something, but that is the scheduling reality that we have. So students can come up with an idea, and then there's a sign-up process where students are able to sign up for either student or faculty-led projects and work on those throughout the year. So we had last year we had 3 different student-driven projects. One working with a water organization globally called Water is Life. We had students working to support a local animal rescue organization here, and then another group working around autism awareness issues. And those were all student-generated ideas that got going. But in terms of kind of the independent project, we haven't. And Gaiby, I'd be curious to know if you are doing anything like that with the students at your school, because I'd love to hear more about that if you are.
Yeah, we, I mean, it's all developmentally appropriate, and what it looks like for a kid who's applying to college versus a 11 or 12-year-old is vastly different. So I would say we, in general, try to give them the structure and like the container, and then creating choices kind of within that, if you will. So for instance, this year in 6th grade, they're doing a whole year-long study around waste. and dividing it into kind of 4 categories or quarters. They're looking at food waste, water waste, electronic waste, and then ending with a look at the tiny house movement. And then they are given these options of kind of committees to choose, and those committees then are associated with some sort of project. So they get to choose, and the options are given to them. They're not necessarily generating the ideas, but there is some voice and choice associated with that. So that's in 6th grade, and then building up to 8th grade, where they're doing a year-long study on homelessness, and it culminates in a class-generated project, again, under the supervision and guidance of their faculty, that the class generates based upon the organizations that they've worked with and studied throughout the year. So last year, for instance, there's an organization here in San Francisco called Lava May, and they take retired city buses, the Muni buses here, and then they convert those into these mobile shower units. There's an incredible lack of public showers here in San Francisco, and so this organization is trying to fill that void, and we heard from them, and we did some more research, and so the students did this walk. They organized a walk from our school down basically across the city to the Pier 40, I believe it was, where we had this temporary housing kind of support area that was set up. So they were trying to replicate, okay, if a person is homeless in our neighborhood, where do they have to walk to get resources? So they kind of mimicked that walk, and it was a long walk to get to the resources. And then they walked from there to City Hall, where they met up with the Lava May folks, and they did this shoe drive, shower drive type thing. So, and that was all based on the work that they had studied on the year, and it was raising awareness and student generated. So, you know, there's a little bit of a range, but it all kind of is a little bit more structured and guided, I would say, for what our kids are doing. So, but again, you know, the goal is to tap into that voice and give them a sense of agency and advocacy.
So sorry, that sounds so interesting. Which class was studying homelessness?
Well, it's interesting. We have a couple of classes, everything from kindergarten, our 5-year-olds, as part of their community study, all the way up to our 8th grade. You know, it's really interesting. We have these bookend experiences where they experience it in kindergarten and they culminate it in 8th grade with that too.
And in the 8th grade class, was it a larger activity, or was it like in a science class, or?
Every student.
Everything?
Yeah, it's all part of the curriculum. So
Okay.
They're either doing it as part of humanities class, or they're doing it as a grade level study. It's all part and parcel to things. So, yeah.
Linda, I wonder if you had anything that you were sort of working on at school or thinking about in terms of student-driven partnerships that is challenging, or you want to bring up, or?
Yeah, we have a pretty established community partners, a program of community partnerships locally and globally, and where, you know, we've developed this new program called EXCEL, E-X-C-E-L, Experiential Community Engaged Learning. So we're working on trying to integrate, like what Gaiby was saying, like, you know, it takes a lot of the thing I think that all of us need is time, the students and the faculty that are involved. And it does take a lot of time to establish programs and the relationships, and to have the kids have the kids commit to it. And if it's built into our academic program, then they're already in it, sort of thing. And they, you know, I think that's great that what you're doing there. So we're working on that. But my one of my biggest issues is trying to help kids. I don't know if we want to kind of transition to the idea of taking ideas to action, is just being able to triage how they, you know, how they're going to get involved, and not to be involved in too many things. Like, because I think that's an issue for young people in general, and also how they commit. Like, they can't commit to a week from now, like, or a month from now, or a lot of them can't, because we're just so focused on like the next 10 hours or the next week or whatever. And I think that's just an issue that I've seen develop. Like, I have a lot of wonderful students that are really engaged. Like, we just did last week we did a pop-up thing for Haiti after the hurricane, and, you know, talked about how, wasn't it interesting that 1,000 people died in Haiti, but it wasn't even in the news. Like, no one really learned about it. So now I'm just trying to get that group that did that last week back together again to see if we want to continue down that path. And it's hard to even find a time where they can get together. But I like what we're doing right now, because maybe I use Google Docs a lot with my kids. I just send out Google Docs and get people to sign up, or get people to that way. But I am struggling with time.
Yeah.
I have a question, actually. I mean, yes, I struggle with time for all of the reasons, Linda, that you mentioned. But on a related note of the time issue, Guyvi, I had a question for you with the programs that you do at the grade level in the middle school. I think one of the things that has come up with bringing these programs into the curriculum in the way that you're describing, what has gotten taken out to make space for those?
It's a good question, and, you know, time is obviously a sacred priority, and I would say that it looks a little different at each grade level, but I would say that it literally is part of what they do in the class. So, you know, we make time for math and we make time for service. So the kids don't know necessarily the difference between what is, quote, service or their curriculum, you know. It's interesting, I'm thinking about when a high school counselor came to talk to our kids several years ago. These were our graduating, or soon to be graduating 8th graders, and he was just trying to get a sense of the room, and he asked these questions. Okay, how many of you do sports? And kids raise their hands. How many of you do arts? Kids raise their hands. How many of you do service? Kids were kind of reluctant to raise their hands because they really didn't know.
So integrated.
You know, it's like, all right, how many of you do math? Okay, then everybody raised their hand, you know? So it was an interesting moment, because it literally is part of the program, and it's really woven and integrated. So I can't say that, you know, we have every Wednesday 45 minutes plugged into the schedule, but it is made, and I think that's kind of where it relies on the teams and me working with the teams to really find the time that works with the 4th grade reading buddies and the 6th grade speaker series, you know. So it looks different at every grade level, and I really appreciate the flexibility that we have, and the teachers are working with me to do that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I guess I would just say that it's a priority right up there with all other classes. Now, when everything's a priority, it does get a little tense and competition comes up, but at the same time, when everybody agrees and we have this shared objective, that's where the give and take comes. So to answer your question of like what gets cut, well, sometimes one week, you know, we'll cut out some math classes, but then they know that the following week it'll be humanities classes. Or, you know, we lost a Friday this time, but, you know, we'll comp it with a Monday at another point, you know. So there are all these pushes and pulls, and I'm grateful for the creative tension that comes along with this, but the really shared understanding that this is important and we all have to give, and you know, that's kind of where we've landed.
And I think, Ivy, that the advantage is it's a part of your culture of your school. Your school's not terribly old, and it was there from the very beginning. And so I think part of the challenge is creating that culture of faith amongst the different teams at a school, that this is something that is beneficial for the kids in a shared learning environment, and that sacrifices are going to be made on all sides. But in the long run, it's for the better of the student and the better educational outcome of the kids that we are growing. So how does a school who doesn't have that intrinsically at their core, because they're 250 years old and it's just it's a challenge. So I mean, I think, Linda, that's a little bit what you're getting to, but also how do you get kids to commit, like to really truly say, yes, I'm every Thursday I'm there from 6 to 8 p.m. It doesn't matter if I have drama practice. And like, is that sorry, I'm stuttering. Is that a question of whether the drama teacher and the service are in cahoots so that they know that sometimes they're going to miss, but they're both equally valuable? I don't know. That's just a big old question. So
yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, you do raise a good point, and I am you know, keenly aware of the gift of our youth here. It's only a 14-year-old school, and so we are creating our culture continually. You know, we don't have the 150-year traditions of you know, institutional whatever. I did come from Head Royce School, which was 120 years old. I worked in the high school there. So I experienced that. You know, you're up against APs. You know, you got the college counseling process. You've got all of these advanced courses. You know, so I get that, and so I feel like when I came to the K-8 school, to an extent, because we didn't necessarily have that of like, oh, we got to do this because blah blah blah. And we still have our barriers, you know. I mean, we do ERB testing, and the high school transition process is very comparable to college admission process to an extent, you know. I would say that culture is a challenge, and there's so many forces that influence and direct and guide it, and you can't really pin it on one. I would just say it has to be this kind of shared understanding, because, you know, all of our missions say the same thing, right? You know, at the 30,000 foot level, we want engaged global citizens, we want scholarship, we want diversity, you know, and every single one, they all say that. It's interesting. Who was it? Michael Thompson, I think I heard once, has said, you know, if you distilled all of our mission statements down, they would say that we're all trying to heal the sick and raise the dead. It's true, you know. They're lofty, they're ambitious, they're these amazing vision statements. Then when you come down to the ground level, what that looks like is completely different, you know. And that's where culture comes in, and values, and, you know, what you say in your admissions tours, for instance. I am one of the speakers on our admissions open houses. So you're going to come and learn. You'll learn about our math curriculum. You'll learn about our reading, writing curriculum. You'll learn about our service curriculum. So even on the intake, when we are promoting our school to the public, this is a priority, just as it is with the math and the reading and writing. You know, our head of school, we did a head of school transition just recently. We have a new head of school. I was involved in the head search process because this is work that is really valuable. Even the nature of my job as a full-time administrator, I don't teach. The school has committed resources to lead up to this position. Faculty, like when we do faculty recruitment, like this is part of the conversation. So it all kind of stems from all of these different corners of the school, but there is this shared understanding and shared objectives. How that came to be, obviously, we were a young school. We lean heavily on our Quaker values, which again is another gift. I remember when I was at Head Royce, I would go to these service learning director conferences, and I would be always jealous with the religious or faith-based schools. You know? Because they were like, oh yeah, we do this in our campus ministry, or we do this in our religion classes. And I was like, oh gosh, I wish I had that, you know? Episcopal schools, you know, those kind of things, they have that they can lean on a little bit more heavily than, you know, other schools, I guess. So
we had a grad come back and talk to the kids, and he said, you know, you're all going to do great. You're all going to be great. But what are you going to do that's good? Mm-hmm. I say that to kids all the time. Like, you know, what have you done today that's good? Like, you know, what are you going to do tomorrow that's good?
And the thing is, it's interesting. There's so much more and more research over time is saying that parents are wanting that, you know, beyond grades. I just read an article the other day that, you know, when they did a survey of parents, what's more important, grades or kindness? And the vast majority of parents were saying that kindness is more. You know, there's more and more emphasis on social emotional learning, purpose, you know, a purpose that is larger than yourself. And so I kind of feel like we're on the cusp of challenging this traditional approach of defining what success looks like, grades-driven metrics, all of those kind of things. And so I feel like that's where independent schools can really make an impact, is really pushing that conversation forward. And it's interesting, now we're even getting neuroscience to back this, you know. There's some really wonderful studies out there about the impact of service and, you know, your mental well-being, you know, and all of that. So, you know, I think things will happen, but it takes time, and, you know, we'll just continue to push it forward.
And I do think, I mentioned this a lot this year, is that the report from Harvard and the Making Caring Common offshoot of the Harvard Graduate School of Education, Turning the Tide, which is, you know, 85 college deans suggesting that they no longer want to evaluate solely on their grades and their test scores, but they want to see commitment to their community, ethical development, moral compass, all of these, everything we are working to help our kids develop. And it's slightly cynical, but when it comes from the college admissions game, every component of a school is working towards college admissions.
I know. I used to joke that if I had an AP for service learning at Head Royce, I would have the best program in the world. You know? But there's seriousness in that, for sure.
Maybe we should have that.
That really drives the program. And, you know, when our Ivy League admissions dipped, that was like a crisis beyond comprehension at our school. So I get that the culture, it's obviously the institutional history and the population that takes time, but you know, it's like turning an oil tanker. It just doesn't happen on a dime. It takes a long time to kind of redirect that ship. So.
And I'm conscious of the fact that of your time, and that the hour is now closely approaching. I am happy and available to stay here and chat for as long as you all are available. But if you have places to go before you have to run away, I just want to really thank you for your engagement today. I think this was a fantastic conversation. Allison, thank you for sharing everything that you all do at Rye Country Day. Again, if you're free to stay and chat more, I think this is a fantastic conversation. We can continue, but I know that there's school going on, even though it's Friday. So just let us know if you're popping off or if you're staying, and we can continue chatting.
And Blake, thank you so much. I do need to go. Unfortunately, I have a 1:00 meeting, but wish I could keep the conversation going. Look forward to catching up with all of you.
Thank you.
I should follow up by saying I will send out a brief survey just right after this, because this is a new program for us, and we're constantly trying to improve and see how we can make this more beneficial for everybody. And if you feel that you would like to have a follow-up with this group of people, that is something I'm very happy to do. So just indicate so, or send me an email. I'm very reachable. So
thank you so much. I have to teach a 110 class, but thank you guys so much.
Good work, Emily. Okay.
Enjoy seeing you guys.
Right after this. So grateful for the opportunity to connect and learn from you all, and keep up the great work. And thank you, Blake, for bringing us together.
Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great weekend.
You too.
And
Thanks.
Linda, if you want to connect at any point in time, please let me know. I'm happy to connect with you at any point in time. And when you're tackling whatever you want to address at school.
Yeah. No. This was a great idea, and I think sometimes we all have great programs at our schools, and we can learn from best practices and things like, and it was. I really appreciate you putting this together, and I would be great to continue it, to like maybe have a topic once a month or something that or school present.
We have one every month, and I'm not entirely sure what this topic is for next month because it's just not on the top of my head. But if you have a topic that you'd like to talk about, I'm happy. This is the beauty of being a young, small organization. We are very flexible and very malleable in our programming. So just let me know, and we will get it.
I'm disappointed that Dave wasn't able to join us. I did one early in his beginning of Grab the Torch. I volunteered as a counselor at one of his summer programs.
Oh, that's great. He was on a train from Baltimore to New York, and so he said it was cutting in and out. And I neglected to do what he asked me to do, which was to say that he has 5 $1,000 scholarships for NNSP partner schools, which I will send out to our members, but so that you would know for your kids as well.
Yeah.
It's a great program, and I think he's looking at this as also a way to connect people. He's an observer of the process as much as the conversation.
Right.
So anyway, well, thank you for participating.
Yeah.
And reach out. The more you ask of NNSP, the more we can help you in your programs, and I can connect you with other people across the country who are working on similar programs.
Yeah. No, I feel very blessed and very supported here because we have a pretty good staff that's dedicated to it. But I think too, with the advent of technology and social media, and it is just like people are just so time constraints it's just a matter of triaging what you feel is important. That's what I'm trying to teach the kids, and go this way rather than it's like just try to
I've been saying that we don't want 12 feet wide, 6 inch deep kids. We want, 6 inches wide, 12 feet deep, some depth in what they're working on. And it's a struggle because, honestly, it's all of us as parents. We are creating this culture for our kids. And it's really, I say often, it's not kid education that we need to worry about. It's parent education.
All right. Yeah, I know for sure. Definitely.
Apparently, all the lights went out in my office because you can no longer see my face.
Yeah, because you probably have to wave you're probably on energy conservation. Yeah.
So anyway, I think as long as we keep doing this work with our kids, we're going to be growing adults that value this work and can appreciate committing to something strongly as opposed to spreading themselves so thin.
I have my afternoon program. A lot of the kids are involved in working with younger kids at the YMCA, at an afternoon school up the street, tutoring, mentoring. So I have a city year rep coming in this afternoon at 3:00 to talk about city year's ideas and what they're doing in the city of Boston. And I just wrote them a note and I was like, be on time and be energized.
Yeah.
Just because I know that they're like, what time is it going to be over, Miss Hurley? Because they have
to run to practice and they have to get their homework done.
Go to lacrosse practice or something for the club lacrosse team that is a showcase for the weekend or whatever. It's just societal. It's just the way it is.
It's insane. And I think I have a 9 and a 12-year-old. So every year I realize just how insane it is. When I was a younger teacher and I didn't have kids of my own, I recognized it, but I didn't really fully appreciate it. But It's insane. It's insane.
My daughter is 30 now, and she's a assistant principal of a public school in Brooklyn. But when we first moved to the town that I live in now, she was like, Mom, she was in 7th grade. She was like, Mom, 6th grade, or it's like, I don't really feel like playing club soccer. And so one of my friends gave me like a really hard time. He was like, what do you mean? You're not going to let, and I said, no, I think I'll like, well, he's like, what are you going to do on Saturday? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just not going to be in a car, like dragging a kid to some
who doesn't want to
play soccer, like, you know, like that. And, you know, but I do agree with the parent education.
And so we often talk about at schools, it's just repeating the language. And I think Gaibi was alluding to that. It's repeating the language of what we want out of our kids. And so then the parents come to understand that taking a step back and giving them some space to grow, and that means time, space as well, is crucial for their emotional development, and to be able to be capable college kids. And you know, kids go from, you know, packed schedules of, you know, 14 hours a day to college where they have 1 class a day, and they're struggling because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do when their day isn't, you know, with 10 minutes free time.
Because someone hasn't programmed their whole day for them. Yeah. The time management and triage. But no, thank you so much. And it's great to know. I'm really excited for our new head. I love Bob. I've been here for 25 years. So I was under Dick Baker and Bob Henderson, but I met her when she came, when we were introduced, and I'm just really excited. You know?
Well, we really, as an organization, we're really thrilled with her commitment to this work. So for you, that's great. But just personally, I think she's a lovely person. So I hope her transition is smooth.
Yeah.
And I hope to connect with you soon. Let me know what I can do to help, and always reach out when you have good news to share. We love spreading good stories.
Okay.
So any videos, marketing, whatever, send to us, and we are thrilled to share them with our members, because like you said, sharing best practices is really the way to go.
Great. Thanks so much.
Have
Bye-bye.
a good weekend. Okay. Bye-bye.